dark, solid state and true timbre, as well as
It's noticeable to me that when I use a 4K mouse, it just feels more responsive.
you can go as fast as you can without trying to go on. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing an audio review for the first time in a while. This is the Supernova, made by an Indonesian startup called 7th Acoustics. So special thanks to Damien, Hadi and Denny for helping arrange with the tour for this unit. The Supernova has been gathering quite significant attention after a few units were sent around to major reviewers. Needless to say, they unanimously praised it for its tonality and listening experience. I'm also happy to say that it takes the cake for my top recommendation at below the $1,000 price mark. The Supernova is shipped in this black box. Opening it up, you're greeted by the IEMs with a warranty card. Then taking off the top cover foam, you also get an array of air tips and a metallic carry case that for some reason was stuck to the bottom here. Now taking out the IEMs themselves, you can see that beautiful abalone shell they have on this exact unit. And if there's one thing that 7th Acoustics has done correctly with the Supernova, it is the various faceplates that they have. Every single unit of the Supernova looks absolutely stunning. Now, you guys can go check out their Instagram and see some examples. There's also some images that we'll throw up on the screen now. This easily sits as one of my top picks for visual aesthetics, regardless of cost. Now, the pricing on the Supernova has been constantly getting increased, and I really don't know what the latest price is at this point, but I believe it was around $750 or approximately 1,150 Australian. The biggest downside of the IEM is that there's an approximate 60-day wait time because each individual one of these, the units, are handmade by one of the founders of 7th Acoustics, Steven. So unfortunately, you can't just order one, get it sent out the next day. The IEM itself is made up of 6 BA, so 2 for lows, 2 for mids, and 2 for highs. Moving into the sonic aspects of the Supernova, it's a neutrally tuned IEM with perfect tonality across the board. If anything, tonality is the main selling point of the Supernova, and it arguably has one of the best tonalities I've ever heard in IEM, regardless of price range. The balance across the entire frequency spectrum is utter perfection, and I'll say it right here, I arguably like the Supernova's tonality more than the Storm, just because of the marginal increase in mid-bass / lower mids of approximately 100 to 300 Hz. The perfection of tonality on the Supernova makes individual segments a lot easier to talk about, and shorter, because the quantity aspect doesn't need much mentioning. The quantity on the Supernova for bass is just right for my preferences as an all-rounder IEM. The sub-bass rumble, the mid-bass impact. Quality, however, is more up for debate. Now, while the Supernova still retains a smidge of the BA bass characteristic, it is easily up there as some of the best BA bass that you can possibly find. The sub-bass rumbles deep and has good quality that showcases itself during sub-bass heavy tracks. It sets the stage as needed. The same is the case with mid-bass. There's enough quality and quantity to satisfy most in the case of a mid-bass heavy track, especially with, say, modern pop and EDM, where bass is often a focus. However, there are definitely moments where I would have liked a bit more bass quality, and I feel like I'm missing a bit of bass texture and information on these bass heavy tracks. Now keep in mind, I'm nitpicking at the Supernova, and I've come from IEMs magnitudes higher in cost and quality. For the vast majority of the listeners, the bass quality and quantity is already as perfect as it gets. If you're a serious bass head, then this probably isn't for you, and you should look into something more bass boosted, probably with a dynamic driver in it. Mids are the star of the show on the Supernova. Firstly, proper lower mids. Now, while some may think that the Supernova is a bit warm, I will most definitely disagree here and say that the Supernova's lower mids are what they should sound like. And if you're used to anything less than the Supernova, you're actually used to lean thin mids. Any more quantity here would then kind of be reaching into the warmth region. However, we can't just speak about lower mids without mentioning the upper mids, since it's all about tonal balance. The upper mids on the Supernova is also tastefully done with the correct quantity and a slight dip at the peak of gain to reduce shoutiness. Now, all of this just means that mid's tonality sounds extremely natural, and I have no other way to describe this other than it's great. The quality aspect is also extremely high, and there honestly isn't much for me to comment on in regards to the mids, or other than it is almost my idealized tuning. Now Treble, the high end on the Supernova, plays a supportive role to the mids here if you were to ask me. The treble is super smooth, and it extends surprisingly well, giving just enough sparkle to the Supernova without it ever sounding too sharp, too bright, too fatiguing. It just adds a touch of sparkle to make the perfect mids. There isn't any unwanted peaks, sudden screeching, never sounds recessed or makes the IEM sound boring, but after extended time with IEMs like Annihilator and once again, Storm, which are known for their treble and EST implementation, I can also kind of notice the lack of ESTs and treble speed from those BAs on the Supernova, as well as how forward the treble is to begin. The smooth, well-tuned treble quantity means that the treble is never put in the spotlight for you to hear, and it always retains more of a passive supporting role, just like how the bass is intended on the Supernova as well. It's all to support those phenomenal mids. Now if you want extremely exciting treble, something you can notice and pick out, definitely look into something a bit more elevated in the treble region, and ideally has E-stats in it. Now going into resolution, the Supernova resolves just fine, but it isn't particularly standout either. I think it fits right into the price bracket that it is for this department. In fact, that's probably the case for everything in the text. The perfect tuning makes the Supernova mean there really isn't any tuning tricks, especially lean mids or treble boosts, to make it seem as if the IEM has higher resolution, higher separation, higher sound staging, and whatever. So the perceived resolution is just as it should be. The raw resolution, or the driver capability in this case, sits where it should. And I definitely do feel that IEMs at higher price points resolve better, such as even the Monarch Mark III. Now regardless of whether that is perceived or true resolution, other IEMs at similar prices or below that resolve equally good often have tuning tricks to make this happen, such as the Dunu SA6 family, which boosts perceived resolution, yet it still falls behind the Supernova in all texts in my opinion. Separation is also good on the Supernova, but it's not great, and it's the same story as it was with resolution. The staging is set wonderfully by the bass and the lower mids on the Supernova, but within that staging, there isn't as much sense of space in between different notes as you would get on some higher end IEMs, even the Monarch Mark III again. Yet this is still done superior to anything below the Supernova's cost. Part of this reason also has to do with the sound staging itself. Now the staging on the Supernova is decently sized. It's not too big, it's not too small. As usual, IEMs at the next cost sound bigger. However, there are IEMs below the cost of the Supernova that almost match it in pure staging size. Yet the issue with those, that I've heard, is that they all sound super compressed, despite the seemingly large stage. And this is due to the boosted treble and leaned out mids, which make everything sound very small, and thus giving it a more spacious feel in between each note. Now, I'm not talking about the staging being small, I'm talking about each individual sound within a stage somehow being small. I'm hearing, oh, there's something here, oh, there's a bit of space, and then there's something on the left, but why are these two sounds very small, even though there seems to be a lot of space in between them? I guess the answer was, if you have a limited staging size, then just shrink each individual note, and you can have a bigger sense of space. Instead, the Supernova doesn't go that pathway, and gives you everything as it should be. Speed and dynamics are just fine as well, this needs no more mentioning. Lastly is positional audio, and yes, the Supernova does this just fine too. It is more than enough for gaming, and even in music listening, it's very accurate within the stage, even though there might not be as much space in between the notes. Now as for comparisons, I've kind of mentioned other IEMs throughout this video, but if you have any in-depth comparisons you'd like to hear me talk about, join the Discord and ask me there, or just leave a comment in this video. Now, this video has been very short. Usually IEM reviews are longer, but for something like the Supernova, I really don't need to talk too much about it. It is just that good. I would like to congratulate 7th Acoustics on creating such a wonderful product, and they should feel proud of what they have accomplished. I look forward to seeing more of their future releases, and hopefully I have an opportunity to review their latest flagship IEM, the Asteria. Until then, see you guys in the next video.